The space station called Haven Prime floated in the darkness between three solar systems. It was massive. More than 2 million beings lived inside its metal walls. They came from dozens of different worlds. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some had so many eyes that counting them made your head hurt. And among all these strange and wonderful creatures, there were humans. Humans were new to the galaxy. They had only joined the Galactic Union 12 years ago. To most alien species, humans were not very impressive. They were small compared to many races. They had no claws, no armor, no poison. They needed to sleep for 8 hours every single day. They got sick easily. They lived for less than 100 years, which most aliens considered tragically short. Many species looked at humans and saw nothing special. Just soft, weak creatures who somehow managed to crawl out of their little blue planet and into the stars. Was 8 years old. She had dark hair that her mother tied into 2 braids every morning. She had round cheeks and curious eyes that watched everything around her. She was the daughter of 2 important people. Her father, Ho, worked as a diplomatic assistant. Her mother was a scientist who studied alien plants and animals. They had moved to Haven Prime 6 months ago for their work. Did not choose to come here. Children rarely get to choose such things, but she tried her best to adapt. Every morning, her mother walked her to the Interspecies Youth Center. It was a school of sorts, where children from many different planets learned together. The idea was beautiful. Young minds from across the galaxy, sharing knowledge, building friendships that would last forever. The reality was different. Sat alone most days, the other children did not hate her. They simply did not notice her. To them, she was just another human, small, quiet, unimportant. She watched them play games she did not understand. She listened to jokes in languages her translator could not fully capture. She smiled when others smiled, laughed when others laughed, and pretended that the loneliness did not hurt. She carried a small notebook everywhere. Inside it, she drew pictures. She drew the aliens she saw, the tall ones with blue skin and 4 arms, the round ones that rolled instead of walked, the ones made of living crystal that sang instead of spoke. Drawing helped her feel less alone. When she drew something, she understood it a little better, and understanding made things less scary. But some things were harder to understand than others. They were one of the oldest warrior species in the galaxy. They looked like giant insects standing on 2 legs. Their bodies were covered in hard black shells. They had 4 arms, each ending in sharp claws. Their heads had large red eyes that never seemed to blink. When they walked, their joints made clicking sounds that echoed through the hallways. Most adults were proud and disciplined. They followed strict codes of honor. They respected strength and courage. But their children were different. Young had not yet learned control. They were aggressive, competitive, and always looking for ways to prove themselves. 3 young attended the youth center. Their names were difficult for human mouths to pronounce, so thought of them by their sizes. Big one, middle one, small one, though even small one was twice her height. They noticed her on her 3rd week at the center. It started with stares. Long, unblinking stares from across the room, felt their red eyes following her wherever she went. She tried to ignore it. Maybe they were just curious. Maybe they had never seen a human child before. Then came the words. "Look at her skin," Big One said one day, loud enough for everyone to hear. "So soft, like a newborn grub." His friends made clicking sounds that's translator identified as laughter. "Does she have any claws at all?" Middle One asked. "How does she defend herself?" "She cannot," Small One answered. "Humans are prey animals. They have no natural weapons." Kept her eyes on her notebook and pretended she could not hear them. But they did not stop. Day after day, they found new ways to mock her. They made fun of her small teeth. They laughed at how slowly she moved. They talked about how humans needed to sleep every night like bobbies. They wondered aloud how such pathetic creatures ever survived on their planet. The other alien children watched but said nothing. Humans had no power in the Galactic Union. There was no benefit in defending one. Told no one. Her parents were so busy with their work. Her father came home tired every night, dealing with complicated political problems. Her mother spent long hours in her laboratory, studying samples from distant worlds. They had enough to worry about. She did not want to add to their burdens. Besides, what could they do? They were not breaking any rules. They never touched her. They just talked. And words, everyone said, could not really hurt you. But everyone was wrong. Words could hurt. They could hurt very much. Found a hiding place. Deep in the station, past the busy markets and crowded hallways, there was an old maintenance corridor. It was near the cargo sector where few people went. The lights were dim there. The walls were old and gray, but it was quiet, it was peaceful, and most importantly, it was hers. She went there during the break times at the youth center. She sat on the cold metal floor with her back against the wall. She drew in her notebook. She breathed slowly. She let the silence wrap around her like a blanket. For 2 weeks, this secret place kept her safe. Then one day, as she sat drawing a picture of a crystal singer she had seen that morning, she heard a sound that made her blood turn cold. Click, click, click. Footsteps, hard, sharp footsteps on the metal floor, getting closer. Looked up, her heart began to pound. At the end of the corridor, 3 tall shadows appeared. Red eyes glowed in the darkness. The clicking grew louder as they approached. Big One stepped into the dim light first. His mandibles spread into something that looked almost like a smile. "Found you," he said. Behind him, Middle One and Small One blocked the only way out. Could not move. Her legs felt like they were made of stone. Her breath came in short, quick gasps. The 3 stood between her and freedom, their red eyes gleaming in the dim light of the corridor. Big One took a step closer. His armored feet made that terrible clicking sound against the metal floor. Each click felt like a countdown to something awful. "You thought you could hide from us," he said. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. "Foolish little human, this station is not that big. We always find what we hunt." Middle One made a chittering sound. She looked scared. Look at her shaking. "Do all humans shake like this?" "Only the weak ones," Small One answered, "which means all of them." They laughed, that horrible clicking laughter that haunts dreams at night. Big One reached down and picked up her notebook from the floor. He held it between 2 clawed fingers like it was something disgusting. He flipped through the pages, looking at her drawings. "What is this?" he asked. "Pictures. You spend your time making pictures." "Please," whispered, her voice was so small. "Please give it back, it is mine." Big One tilted his head. For a moment, thought he might actually return it. Then his mandibles spread wide and he tore the notebook in half. The sound of ripping paper cut through his heart. All her drawings, the crystal singers, the 4-armed merchants, the family portrait she had been working on for her mother's birthday. Gone, destroyed in a single cruel motion. Tears filled her eyes. She tried to hold them back, but they spilled down her cheeks anyway. "Oh, look," Middle One said with mock surprise. "Water is coming from her eyes. I heard humans do this. They leak when they are upset. How strange, how weak." Big One dropped the torn pieces of the notebook on the ground. He stepped on them as he moved closer to. Now he was so close she could smell him. A sharp, bitter smell like old metal and something sour. "You know what I do not understand," Big One said slowly. "I do not understand how your species survived at all. You have no armor, no claws, no strength. On my world, creatures like you are food, nothing more." He reached out with one clawed hand and poked her shoulder. Not hard enough to cut, but hard enough to push her against the wall. "So soft," he said. "I wonder how easily you break." Fear exploded inside, real fear. The kind that makes your whole body cold. She understood now that this was different from before. This was not just words. They were going to hurt her, maybe badly. Her mind raced. What could she do? She could not fight them. She could not run past them. She could not scream loud enough for anyone to hear in this forgotten corner of the station. Then she remembered. 3 months ago, on her first week at Haven Prime, her father had given her something. He had knelt down to her level, looked into her eyes and pressed a small object into her hand. It looked like a simple hair clip, decorated with a tiny flower. "This is not just a hair clip," he had told her. "Inside it is a beacon. If you are ever in danger, real danger, press the flower 3 times fast. It will send a signal. A silent signal that only goes to me and to the other humans on this station. Do you understand?" Had nodded, though she did not really think she would ever need it. "I hope you never have to use it," her father had said. "But if you do, use it. Do not hesitate. Do not be brave, just press it and wait. I will come. No matter where I am, no matter what I am doing, I will come." The hair clip was in her hair right now. It was always in her hair. Big One poked her again, harder this time. "Are you listening to me, little human? I asked you a question. How easily do you think you break?" Raised her trembling hand slowly. She pretended to touch her face to wipe her tears, but her fingers found the hair clip, found the tiny flower decoration. Press, press, press. 3 times fast. Nothing visible happened. No light, no sound. They did not notice anything at all. But somewhere in the station, in a secure room that only humans could access, a small red light began to blink. "I think she is too scared to talk," Small One said. "Maybe we should help her find her voice." He reached toward her face with his claw. Closed her eyes. She tried to remember her father's face, his warm smile, the way he always made her feel safe. She held onto that image like a lifeline. "Wait," Big One said suddenly. "Let me do it. I am the oldest." They argued among themselves about who would get to touch her first, like she was a toy, like she was nothing. But was not thinking about them anymore. She was thinking about her father's words. "I will come, no matter where I am. No matter what I am doing, I will come." She believed him. She had always believed him. Her father never broke his promises. Never. Big One finished arguing with his friends and turned back too. He grabbed her arm with his claw. The sharp edges pressed against her soft skin, not cutting yet but threatening. "Now," he said, "let us see how loud a human can scream." Then they all heard it. Footsteps. Not the clicking steps of these were different, heavy, steady, deliberate, the footsteps of boots on metal, human boots. They turned their heads toward the sound. The corridor behind them was dark, but the footsteps kept coming, getting closer, getting louder. A figure appeared at the end of the hallway, a silhouette against the distant light, tall for a human, broad shoulders, moving with a purpose that seemed to fill the entire corridor. Big One released his arm. He stood up straight and faced the newcomer. "Who are you?" he demanded. "This is none of your business. Leave now." The figure did not answer. It just kept walking, step by step, closer and closer. The lights in the corridor flickered. For just a moment, saw his face. It was her father. But he looked different. He was not wearing his usual diplomatic clothes. He was wearing something else. Old armor, dark and from many battles. Armor she had never seen before. Armor that told a story she did not know. His face was calm, too calm. His eyes were fixed on them with a look that made even Big One take a step backward. Ho stopped walking. He stood there in the dim light, looking at his daughter pressed against the wall, looking at the torn notebook on the floor, looking at the 3 young who had cornered her like prey. Then he looked at Big One. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, almost soft, but somehow it filled the entire corridor. "You touched my child." It was not a question, it was not a threat, it was simply a statement of fact, and in those 4 words something changed. The air grew heavy, the shadows seemed deeper, even the station itself seemed to hold its breath. They did not understand yet. They did not know what those words meant. They did not know what was about to happen. Big One stared at the human standing before him. He was not impressed. The man was smaller than any of the three. He had no claws, no armor that mattered, no natural weapons of any kind. Just soft skin and strange clothing covered in old marks and scratches. "Your child," Big One made a clicking sound of amusement. "This weak little thing belongs to you. Then you should have taught her to stay away from her betters." Ho did not respond. He simply stood there, his eyes moving slowly from one to another, studying them, measuring them. His face showed no anger, no fear, no emotion at all, just that terrible, patient calm. Middle One shifted nervously. Something felt wrong to him, though he could not say what. "We were just playing," he said, "teaching her about the natural order, the strong and the weak. She needs to learn her place." "Her place," Ho repeated. The words came out flat and cold. "Yes." Big One stepped forward, trying to seem larger, more threatening. "Humans are new to the galaxy. You do not understand how things work yet. Your species is weak, soft. You survive only because the Galactic Union protects you. Without that protection, you would be nothing, less than nothing." He pointed a claw at who still pressed herself against the wall. "She needs to understand this. All humans need to understand this. You are prey. You will always be prey." For a long moment, nothing happened. The corridor was silent except for the distant hum of the station's systems. Then Ho smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of something old and dangerous that had been sleeping for a very long time and had just been woken up. "You think we are weak," he said softly. "You think we are prey. Let me tell you something about humans, something your people never bothered to learn." He took a step forward, just one step, but somehow it felt like the entire corridor shrank. "On our world we were not the strongest. We were not the fastest. We had no claws, no fangs, no venom. We were small and soft, just as you say. And yes, many things hunted us." Another step. Big One held his ground, but his posture changed. His body was preparing for something, though his mind had not caught up yet. "But we survived," Ho continued. "We did more than survive. We conquered, not through strength or speed or natural weapons. We conquered through something else, something your people have never understood." "And what is that?" Big One demanded. His voice was still proud, but there was an edge to it now, uncertainty. Ho stopped walking. He was close now, very close, close enough that could see the scars on his armor clearly. Each one told a story. Each one was a memory of violence survived. "We protect what we love," Ho said. "And when something threatens what we love, we become something else. Something that does not stop. Something that does not yield. Something that will tear through anything and anyone to keep our families safe." His eyes locked onto Big One's red gaze. "You threatened my daughter, you cornered her, you frightened her, you made her cry." He tilted his head slightly. "Now I am going to teach you why that was the worst mistake of your young life." Big One attacked first. His pride would not allow him to show fear. He lunged forward with all four arms, claws extended, mandibles wide. He was fast. For his species, he was very fast. But Ho was faster. He moved like water, like smoke, like something that had no solid form at all. One moment he was in front of Big One. The next moment he was beside him. His hands found pressure points that even the armor could not protect, joints, nerve clusters, the soft places between the hard shell plates. Big One crashed to the ground before he understood what had happened. He tried to rise, but his body would not obey. His arms twitched uselessly. His legs refused to move. Middle One and Small One attacked together. They had trained for combat since they could walk. They moved in perfect coordination, striking from two angles at once. Against any normal opponent, it would have worked. Ho was not a normal opponent. He caught Middle One's claw in one hand and twisted. The young screamed as his arm bent in a direction it was never meant to go. Not broken, not permanently damaged, but the pain was beyond anything he had ever felt. Small One tried to grab Ho from behind. The human dropped low, spun, and drove his palm into the soft spot beneath the chest plate. All the air rushed out of Small One's body. He collapsed, gasping, unable to breathe properly. In less than 10 seconds, all three were on the ground. Ho stood over them, not even breathing hard. He had not killed anyone. He had not caused any permanent injury, but he had demonstrated something that they would never forget. Humans were not weak. Humans were restrained. There was a very important difference. You see, Ho said, his voice still calm, we learned long ago that true strength is not about destruction. It is about control. We could kill. We are very, very good at killing. Our history is written in blood, but we choose not to. We choose to hold back. We choose to be gentle. He knelt down next to Big One, who stared up at him with something new in his red eyes, something he had never felt before in his young life. Fear, real fear. But when someone threatens our children, Ho continued, we stop holding back. We stop being gentle. We become what we were before civilization taught us to be kind. We become predators. And there is nothing in this galaxy, nothing in any galaxy, more dangerous than a human protecting their child. He stood up and walked too. His entire demeanor changed in an instant. The predator disappeared. In its place was just a father, worried, loving, gentle. Are you hurt? He asked softly, kneeling before her. Shook her head. Tears still streamed down her face, but they were different tears now. Relief, safety, love. I was so scared, she whispered. Ho pulled her into his arms. He held her tight, one hand stroking her hair, the other wrapped protectively around her small body. I know, he said. I know, but I am here now. I will always come, always. Behind them, the juveniles slowly managed to sit up. They did not try to attack again. They did not say anything at all. They just watched the human father holding his human daughter, and they began to understand something that would change them forever. The sound of more footsteps echoed through the corridor, many footsteps, running. Station security arrived first, led by a human named with a stern face and sharp eyes. Behind him came adults, their armor gleaming, their expressions confused and angry. And behind them came Ambassador Sung Ho, the senior human diplomat on Haven Prime, his face unreadable but his eyes taking in everything. Looked at the scene, the three juveniles on the ground, Ho holding his daughter, the torn notebook scattered across the floor. What happened here? He asked. Ho stood, lifting with him. She clung to his neck, her face buried against his shoulder. These three cornered my daughter, he said. They intended to harm her. I stopped them. One of the adults stepped forward, his stance aggressive. You attacked our young. This is an outrage. You will face judgment for this. Ambassador Sung Ho raised a hand, and somehow that simple gesture silenced everyone. Yes, he said calmly, there will be judgment, but perhaps not the kind you expect. He looked at Ho, at the fallen juveniles. The news spread across Haven Prime like fire through dry grass. Within hours, everyone on the station knew what had happened. A human male had attacked three juveniles. A diplomatic incident. A potential crisis between two member species of the Galactic Union. But that was not the whole story. And the whole story, as Ambassador Sung Ho knew, would change everything. 3 days after the incident, a formal tribunal was convened in the Grand Assembly Hall. It was a massive circular room with seats rising up in tiers all around. Representatives from dozens of species filled those seats. Some came out of duty. Most came out of curiosity. The rarely lost fights. Everyone wanted to know how it had happened. At the center of the room were 2 raised platforms. On one stood the delegation. 3 elder warriors in ceremonial armor, their faces stern and proud. Behind them sat the 3 juveniles, their wounds healed but their pride still broken. On the other platform stood the human delegation, Ambassador Sung Ho in his formal robes, in his security uniform, and Ho, wearing simple civilian clothes with holding his hand, stood beside them, her arm around her daughter's shoulders. The chief arbiter, a massive being made of living stone, called the tribunal to order. Its voice rumbled through the hall like distant thunder. "We are gathered to examine the incident in Maintenance Corridor 17, it said. "The delegation has accused the human Ho of unprovoked assault against 3 of their young. The human delegation has filed a counterclaim of harassment and threatened violence. Let the proceedings begin." The lead elder stepped forward. His name was difficult for human ears, but his title translated as Voice of Honor. He spoke with absolute confidence. "The facts are simple," he declared. "A human male physically attacked 3 children. He injured them. He humiliated them. This is not acceptable behavior for any member of the Galactic Union. Humans have shown themselves to be violent, unstable, and dangerous. We demand punishment. We demand justice." Murmurs rippled through the assembled representatives. Many nodded in agreement. Humans were still newcomers. They had few allies. Few species would speak in their defense. Ambassador Sung-Ho waited until the hall grew quiet. Then he smiled and stepped forward. "Honored representatives," he began, "the Voice of Honor speaks of facts, but he has told you only some of them. Allow me to present the rest." He gestured to who activated a holographic display. An image appeared in the center of the room. It was footage from his distress beacon, which had recorded everything from the moment she activated it. The hall watched in silence as the scene played out. They saw the 3 corner the small human girl. They heard the cruel words. They watched Big One tear apart her notebook. They saw him grab her arm, saw his claws pressing against her skin, heard him say, "Let us see how loud a human can scream." When the footage ended, the hall was very quiet. "The beacon was given to her by her father," Sung-Ho explained. "Standard practice for human families living among other species. We hope our children never need to use them, but we prepare for the worst because we have learned that hope alone is not enough." He turned to face the elders directly. "Your young did not simply encounter a human child by accident. They hunted her. They stalked her for weeks. They found her hiding place and cornered her there. They destroyed her possessions. They grabbed her body. They expressed intent to cause her pain. And through all of this, she was alone. She was 8 years old. She was terrified, and she had no one to help her." His voice remained calm, but something hard entered his eyes. "Until her father arrived." The Voice of Honor stepped forward, his mandibles clicking with anger. "He attacked children. Whatever they did, they are still young. He is an adult warrior. There is no honor in such an unequal fight." "No honor," Sung-Ho repeated. He actually laughed, though there was no humor in it. "You speak to me of honor. Your children showed no honor when they tormented a little girl day after day. They showed no honor when they destroyed her precious drawings. They showed no honor when they pressed their claws against her skin and threatened to make her scream." He shook his head. "But I will not argue about honor. Instead, let me explain something about humans, something your species has never understood, something that perhaps no species in this galaxy has ever understood." He paused, looking around the great hall at all the watching faces. "Humans form bonds," he said. "Deep bonds, permanent bonds. We call it love, though that word does not fully capture what it means. When a human loves someone, that person becomes part of them. Hurting that person is the same as hurting the human themselves. There is no separation, there is no distance. They are one." He gestured toward Ho and a human parent and their child share the deepest bond of all. It is written into our very biology, our instincts, our souls, if you believe in such things. When a human child is threatened, something awakens in the parent, something ancient, something that existed before we learned to speak, before we built cities, before we reached for the stars. His voice grew softer, but it carried through the entire hall. "We call it the protective instinct, but that name is too gentle, too tame. What it really is, honored representatives, is a force of nature. It cannot be reasoned with. It cannot be bargained with. It cannot be stopped. A human protecting their child will fight through any obstacle, face any danger, challenge any enemy. They will not stop until their child is safe. They will never stop. The hall was completely silent now. Every being in every seat was listening. Ho did not attack those juveniles out of anger or cruelty, Sung Ho continued. He responded to a threat against his daughter, and he showed remarkable restraint. He could have killed all three of them. His training, his skills, his experience would have allowed him to end their lives in seconds, but he chose not to. He disabled them. He taught them a lesson, and then he held his daughter and comforted her. He turned back to the chief arbiter. They speak of humans as weak and violent, but we are neither. We are strong enough to destroy and wise enough to choose not to. We are peaceful until peace is no longer an option. And when someone threatens our children, we remind the universe why humanity survived when so many other species did not. A long silence followed his words. Then, from somewhere in the upper tiers, a voice called out. It was a representative from a species did not recognize, a being with silver skin and many eyes. I request that we review human history, it said, their wars, their conflicts, their acts of protection and sacrifice. I want to understand what the ambassador speaks of. Others echoed the request. Within minutes, the chief arbiter approved a research break. Data streams began flowing from human archives to representatives throughout the hall. What they found amazed them. Stories of parents lifting vehicles to save trapped children, soldiers throwing themselves on explosives to protect their friends, ordinary people running into burning buildings to save strangers. Again and again, throughout human history, the same pattern emerged. Humans would sacrifice everything, endure anything, risk all that they were to protect those they loved. The representatives saw battles where outnumbered humans refused to surrender because families sheltered behind them. They saw disasters where humans worked until they collapsed to save others. They saw small acts of courage, countless moments of ordinary people becoming extraordinary because someone needed them. And they saw parents, so many parents, fighting, struggling, dying, surviving, all for their children. The voice of honor watched the data streams with growing unease. He saw something familiar in those human eyes, something he recognized from his own people's greatest warriors, the willingness to give everything, the refusal to yield. When the tribunal reconvened, something had changed. The atmosphere was different. The way the representatives looked at the small human family was different. The chief arbiter rendered its judgment. The evidence shows that the juveniles initiated the conflict through sustained harassment and physical threat. The human Ho responded with proportionate force to protect his child. No permanent harm was inflicted. The juveniles will undergo rehabilitation and cultural education. No punishment will be assigned to the human delegation. The voice of honor bowed his head. He did not argue. As the hall began to empty, the silver-skinned representative approached Ambassador Sung Ho. "We called you weak," it said quietly. "We were wrong. You are not weak. You are something else entirely, something we do not have a word for." Sung Ho smiled. "We have a word," he said. "We call ourselves human." That night, a new message began spreading through the galactic networks. It was not about politics or trade or territory. It was a single word, whispered from species to species, station to station, world to world. A word that would forever change how the galaxy saw the small, soft, short-lived beings from a little blue planet. Protectors. The humans were protectors, and the galaxy would never forget it. "I think," he said, "the galaxy is about to learn something very important about humanity." And he was right. But they were about to learn. Pressed her back against the wall. Her notebook fell from her shaking hands. She was trapped, alone, with no one to help her. 4 weeks had passed since the tribunal. Haven Prime felt different now. The air itself seemed to have changed, though knew that was silly. Air was just air, but something had definitely shifted. She could feel it in the way people looked at her, in the way they moved aside when she walked through the corridors, in the way they smiled and nodded instead of ignoring her completely. Humans were no longer invisible on Haven Prime. Stood outside the Interspecies Youth Center, holding her mother's hand. She had a new notebook tucked under her arm. Her father had given it to her the day after the tribunal. It had a beautiful cover with stars and planets printed on it, and inside the front cover he had written a message. For my brave girl, fill these pages with wonder, love. She had not wanted to come back to the youth center. The memories were still too fresh, the fear still too close, but her parents had talked to her gently, explaining that hiding would only make the fear grow stronger. The only way to defeat it was to face it. So here she was, scared but trying to be brave. I will be right here when you finish, said, squeezing her daughter's hand. And your father is just one call away. Remember that, always. Nodded, she took a deep breath, squared her small shoulders and walked through the entrance. The main hall was full of children from a dozen different species. They were playing, talking, studying just like before. But when entered, something happened that had never happened before. They noticed her. Conversations paused. Heads turned. Eyes of every shape and color focused on the small human girl with the braided hair and the notebook under her arm. For a moment, felt the old fear rising. Then a young being made of crystal walked toward her. Its body chimed softly as it moved, creating a gentle melody. Recognized it as one of the crystal singers she had drawn so many times. You are the crystal child, said. Its voice was like music. The one from the tribunal. Swallowed hard, yes. I saw the footage, the crystal child continued. Your father came for you, he fought for you, he held you after. It paused, its crystalline body glowing faintly. I wish someone would fight for me like that, it said quietly. Before could respond, another child approached, then another. Within minutes she was surrounded, but it was not like before. These children were not threatening her. They were curious. They were amazed. They wanted to know more about her, about humans, about the strange species that loved so fiercely. A young being with 4 arms asked if she would draw a picture of it. A fluffy creature that communicated through colors wanted to sit next to her. A small reptilian child shyly offered to share its lunch. For the first time since arriving on Haven Prime, felt like she belonged. Across the room, watching from a corner, 3 familiar figures sat in silence. Big one, middle one, and small one. Their rehabilitation required them to continue attending the youth center, but they were not allowed to interact with other children without supervision. An adult counselor stood nearby, watching their every move. Noticed them. Her heart beat faster and old fear flickered in her chest, but she did not look away. She held Big One's gaze for a long moment. Something had changed in his red eyes. The cruelty was gone. The mockery was gone. In its place was something had never expected to see. Respect. He lowered his head slightly. It was not much, just a small dip of his chin, but for it meant everything. It was an acknowledgement, a recognition that he had been wrong about her, about humans, about everything. Nodded back, just once. Then she turned to her new friends and began to draw. The weeks that followed brought more changes. Human families began arriving on Haven Prime in greater numbers. Parents who had been too afraid to bring their children into alien space now felt safer. The word had spread. The galaxy knew that human children were protected, fiercely protected. More humans meant more connections, more friendships, more understanding between species. Found herself becoming something she had never expected to be. A bridge. Children who wanted to learn about humans came to her. She showed them her drawings, taught them simple human games, shared stories from Earth that her grandmother had told her. She was no longer the lonely girl hiding in maintenance corridors. She was, and that was enough. One evening, the entire family was called to a special assembly. Ambassador Sung Ho was giving a speech to the Galactic Council, and all humans on Haven Prime were invited to attend. The council chamber was even more impressive than the tribunal hall. Thousands of representatives from across the galaxy filled the vast space. Holographic screens floated everywhere, broadcasting the event to billions of beings on countless worlds. Sung Ho stood at the center, looking small against the massive scale of the chamber. But his voice, when he spoke, filled every corner. "Honored representatives of the Galactic Union," he began. "For 12 years, humanity has been part of this great community. For 12 years, we have learned your ways, followed your rules, tried to prove ourselves worthy of membership. And for 12 years, many of you have looked at us and seen only weakness." He smiled, and it was a warm smile, not a bitter one. "We do not blame you, we understand. By your standards, we are strange creatures. We are small, we are fragile. We live such short lives compared to many of you. We feel emotions that seem extreme. We form attachments that seem irrational. We love in ways that seem almost painful." He paused, looking around the vast chamber. "But I stand before you today to tell you that these things are not weaknesses. They are our greatest strengths. Our short lives teach us to value every moment. Our fragile bodies teach us to protect each other. Our deep emotions give us the passion to dream, to create, to reach beyond what seems possible. And our love, our fierce and endless love, makes us willing to do anything for those we care about." His voice grew stronger. "We are humans. We are small, but we stand tall. We are brief, but we burn bright. We are soft, but we are strong. Not strong in the way of claws or armor or venom. Strong in the way of bonds that cannot be broken. Strong in the way of hope that refuses to die. Strong in the way of parents who will move mountains for their children." He looked toward where sat with her family, and his eyes softened. "A great teacher once said that the measure of a civilization is how it treats its weakest members. If that is true, then perhaps the measure of a species is how fiercely it protects its young. By that measure, I believe humanity has something to offer this galaxy. Not weapons, not technology, not power, something more valuable." He spread his hands wide. "We offer you the simple truth that love is the strongest force in any universe. That protecting those you cherish is the noblest purpose any being can have. That the bonds between parent and child, between friend and friend, between all who care for one another, are what make life worth living among the stars." The chamber was silent. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds listened to this small, soft, short-lived creature speak of love as if it were the answer to everything. And perhaps it was. That night, back in their family quarters, sat at her desk working on a new drawing. Her mother was reading in the corner. Her father sat beside her, watching her work with quiet pride. "What are you drawing?" he asked. Tilted the notebook so he could see. It was a picture of humans standing among the stars, not as visitors, not as newcomers, but as equals, as family members in a vast galactic home. In the center of the drawing was a tall man holding the hand of a small girl. Around them, beings of every shape and size stood together, looking up at the endless sky. At the bottom of the page, had written a caption in her careful, simple handwriting. "My dad, the bravest man in the galaxy." Ho's eyes grew wet. He tried to speak but found that his voice would not work properly. He cleared his throat and tried again. "I am not that brave," he said softly. "I was terrified when I got your signal. I have never been so scared in my life." Looked up at him with those wise young eyes that had seen too much, but still believed in goodness. "Being scared and still coming," she said. "That is what brave means." Ho stared at his daughter, 8 years old, so small, so strong, so perfectly, wonderfully human. He pulled her into a hug, holding her tight against his chest. He felt his hand on his shoulder as she joined them, wrapping her arms around them both. "I love you," whispered against her father's chest. "Thank you for always coming." Ho kissed the top of her head. His eyes were closed, his heart was full. "Always," he promised. "No matter what, no matter where, no matter when, I will always come." Outside their window, the stars of 1,000 worlds sparkled in the endless dark. Somewhere out there, beings of every kind were learning a new truth about the small creatures from the little blue planet. Humans were not just survivors. They were not just explorers or diplomats or scientists. They were protectors. They were lovers. They were parents who would move heaven and earth for their children. And that, in the end, was what made them human. In a galaxy full of wonders, there was no greater wonder than that. And they were done with just words.